Welcome back to the Starbase Indy podcast, where we talk to and about people who are inspired by Star Trek or science fiction to work towards hopeful futures in the real world.
I'm Mary Bischoff. I'm the owner of Dragon's Edge Press, which is producing the first ever anthology for Starbase Indy this year. So I'm very excited about that. I also am an author. I have a story in the anthology, and I have several stories in various Sisters in Crime anthologies and also Gal's poetry anthologies.
So I don't want to give anything away, but I will ask you about your inspiration for the story that's in the anthology.
Well, a lot of my characters just kind of appear out of nowhere in my brain, which probably doesn't say anything good about my brain, but
I don't know. I think it says something wonderful about your brain having read the story.
well, good. So yeah, a lot of times they just, you sit down and you start writing, and then sometimes just that character is right there under your fingertips, and it's got its own backstory and just wants to get out there and see the universe, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of a magical process.
Yes.
So you have been coming to Starbase Indy for approximately ever years?
How long has it been? I probably don't really want to think about that, but yeah,
Math is mean when we get to our age, doesn't it? Yeah.
that's right.
But what do you love about Starbase Indy?
I love that it's so inclusive, that there's something for everyone. You can have your own fandom clique, and everybody welcomes you, and most everybody will talk to you and sometimes argue with you about their favorite fandom, but we all just love science fiction and fantasy and inhabit that world that is sometimes much better than our own.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, the showrunner for Prodigy was a guest, and he said, "Spirited discussion is the love language of a Star Trek fan," which might be my favorite ever quote from Starbase Indy.
That's really good. Yes.
Yeah. So what was your favorite part about putting the anthology together?
Just seeing all the different things that the authors came up with, because there were some of them that were just like, I didn't see that coming.
Right? Yes, there were several like that. And in one case, I was thinking, wow, that's really not how that works. Oh, I see what he did there.
Exactly.
Oh, he's not the one who's got it wrong. Yeah, absolutely.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I've been reading through in preparation for all these interviews, and you've done a phenomenal job finding talent and great pieces. So thank you. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
we'll go on in this episode to interview several of your authors and just get little snippets from them. Like first.
Hi, everyone. I am Tammy Jo Eckhart. I am an author, activist, and educator. I've been published since 1994. Published, I mean paid publications. I have a PhD in ancient history with minors in women and sexuality and folklore. And I love sci-fi, fantasy, especially horror. And I write in all different genres, usually using my real name, though I do have one pen name that I've used for my YA urban fantasy.
Okay. What is your pen name?
It's just T.J. Eckhart.
Okay.
So honestly, it should be easy to find.
Not that big a secret. Yes. Okay.
I've learned the hard way. I've had people show up at events and go, "You have more books out?" Because maybe they knew my writing in the 90s when it was just Tammy Eckhart. And then another publisher said, well, I said, I really want to use the Joe. Okay, Tammy space Joe Eckhart. And then finally, it was the way I wanted it, which was Tammy Jo as one word, but with the capital J, Eckhart. And it's amazing the number of people who don't realize that might be the same author. I had a lot of sales because that person was like, I want everything else you've published since. But
well, that's always a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Cool. So I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to ask anything specific about your story, but in the Starbase anthology, but I will ask you what your inspiration for it was.
So this story is actually an opportunity that came up. I previously written this story for a magazine, and then they didn't accept it. And it was a magazine called First Words. and they give you the first sentence, and then for that issue, everyone's supposed to use that sentence. It's not the starter sentence anymore, because once it wasn't accepted, I changed it. But when I had that sentence, I was just sitting and thinking, and I thought, you know what? This is the type of story I don't see too often in science fiction. There are lots of men in science fiction stories, so that it's focused on men is not the point. It's the type of relationship these men have. Even though they end up separated across space, this relationship is maintained. And we see it primarily from one side. So we see the struggles with trying to communicate across multiple light years. Even if you have advanced technology, it's not like you're picking up the phone and talking to someone.
Right, right. And that's the thing a lot of people kind of get wrong when I talk to scientists. They're like, this is not how it really works. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what inspired it. I wanted to do a deeper dive into something that I didn't think was written about enough.
Mhm.
I'm really big in promoting positive masculinity, gentle, strong, honorable masculinity. And I think a lot of times in it's not really Star Trek, because in Star Trek, I see that.
Yeah.
Sort of male characters and male friendships. But in a lot of science fiction, it's like shoot 'em up, ask questions later, or
Yeah.
get the girl at the end, or get the alien at the end, or nowadays get the other boy at the end. It's more focused on goals
Mm-hmm.
and not so much on the character relationships, which is one of the reasons I like Star Trek.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do that. That I remember taking a science fiction book to a book club I was in at one point, and everyone saying, well, this is about the people. I'm like, yes, yes, it is. Maybe you should read more science fiction.
I've had people say similar things about other genres I write in. So I have this reputation of writing erotica.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't actually consider what I write to be erotica. I'm writing about characters, and sexuality is a part of human existence and a
Yeah.
part of human relationships. And I'll have people come up to me and go like, there was like a lot of plot and characters in this. And I'm like, yeah. Or for
Thank
people who
you.
do read it for the more salacious side, they'll say, I forgot fill in the blank gender, sex of this character because I was so connected that it didn't matter. And I was like, that's what I want.
Yeah, and I think that kind of writing is important for building empathy for difference and remembering that, at the end of the day, we're all just.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said it has been a long time since you've been to Starbase Indy, but what are you looking forward to coming back?
Well, I don't actually know what's going to be there. This will be my first time, and my roadie, who's my husband's first time too. So he's very excited to discover what's there. I'm more like I want to see what's going to be there. I'm more of a planner with my schedule. So when I see a schedule, then I'll know like, what do I want to do? What do I want to see? But I always keep I want to say 15-20% of my time to just see what happens, to see who's there. I know there's a big crossover with the In Conjunction crowd, and so I want to see who's going to be there. I know some people will be there that I've seen, and so I'll be like, "Hey, I'm seeing you in a different context. I'm seeing you in a sweater because it's 95
Not
degrees out."
July. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to see if there's I am not a big costuming person because I do not have a visual creative bone or skill in my body, but I find it very fascinating when people do and they want to embody the characters they love or create brand new characters and then kind of put that on and become that character. So I want to see how much that happens at Starbase. And I've heard about it from people for years.
Yeah, we've got a great cosplay track going this year. Excited to have a writer's track. I'm such a fan of science fiction literature. I always try to get more of that on the schedule.
Okay. Okay, cool. Cool. So I'm excited. It's right after Thanksgiving, but we don't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. We have a family of choice, and that's who we'll spend Thanksgiving dinner with and stuff.
That is very common with our Starbase family. People call it the geek family Thanksgiving, and that's one of the things that drew me to it. And so hopefully you will enjoy it a great deal.
Yeah, I hope
All
so.
right. Yeah. So in just a couple weeks, I'll see you on the Starbase.
All right. Great. Looking forward to it.
Good.
What we want to
Ah,
Yay, round two. I'm Franklin Oliver. I'm a native Hoosier, a 20-plus year educator, and a poet. This past spring was my fourth book, and I'm actually really excited to make my way to Starbase Indy this year. I've had a couple fits and starts that have kept me from participating in the past.
Third time's a charm?
Yes. It's also cool to be part of this podcast because some of the podcasts from last year were just exceptional. I felt like I really learned a lot. So, yay.
So the pieces you have in the anthology are speculative poetry. And although it is getting some traction in the science fiction world of late, I think a lot of folks aren't necessarily familiar with what is speculative poetry.
Sure. And this was accidental, but also kind of perfect. I'm wearing a Sun Ra t-shirt. And Sun Ra is, in some respects, the father of Afrofuturism. Speculation and possibility are what he was all about. So in an earthly sense, this guy was born in Alabama. But in a more important sense, his identity includes having been born on Saturn.
Okay.
And even though I personally haven't been to Saturn yet, that's where he knew he was from. And he wanted to bring some Saturnian insights to the planet Earth. And he did that for decades. In fact, his orchestra is still out there performing. My best friend got to see them in Los Angeles last year. The saxophonist and band leader, Marshall Allen, just turned 100, I believe, maybe 101. And
wow.
Just put out his first solo record. The reason I bring them up in this context is that they were convinced that the future needed to be different and better. And the only way to make sure that happened was to create a vision of the future and then move toward it. That was the speculative part. For them, it was speculative music. And one really odd, fascinating film that I would encourage folks to watch. It's on YouTube for free. So go find it. Space is the Place is the name of this movie. For me as a writer, poetry is largely a means to an end. I'm not someone that feels as though if I don't write every day, I'm just going to have my essence diminished. I use poetry as a way to say something. And what I have most needed to say in these past several years is that the world can be different and needs to be different. I've been, I suppose, hitting on that theme more recently, but imagining a different future has always been important to me. And part of that's because I was a sci-fi kid. Isaac Asimov with my North Star. Gosh, the notion that human beings have the power to create something radically different and better stood out to me as a little kid. And now as someone in my early 50s, it feels just like the most obvious thing in the world. I have a consulting business. It's called Good Trouble Solutions. And on the masthead of our website is the quote from Reverend Theodore Parker that is usually attributed to Martin Luther King Jr. The arc of the moral universe is long, but bends toward justice. I'm absolutely convinced that it doesn't work that way, that people of goodwill have to push. We have to make sure that that arc moves in the right direction, because sometimes it moves in the very wrong directions. We've seen it again and again. I'm a history teacher. I can give you chapter and verse on times when a society seemed to be moving in the right direction and then didn't. That includes this one, and not just in the present moment. America's had lots of times where we've really backslid. So I think it's vital for artists, creatives, again, people of goodwill, to document the future that they want and to start creating opportunities for other people to see that future. I think that's a big part of why the dystopian novel were such a big deal, 10, maybe 15 years ago. Lots of folks saw a decline and wanted to create the kind of rebel stories that I grew up with. For me, Star Wars was a little bit about space, but I thought it was mostly about the Cold War. I could have been wrong, but that's how I took it. That's what it meant to me. And I was convinced that fighting evil empires was exactly what we were supposed to do. I didn't necessarily like the way Ronald Reagan wanted to go about it, but I was convinced that that's the right thing to do. And I think I still am.
And we're all about that hopeful future part with Starbase Indy. So yeah, humans got to figure it out before they can create it. What are you most looking forward to about Starbase Indy?
Yeah, I think it's really going to be the chance to interact with lots of people who want to do the right things, are willing to do the right things, and can teach me stuff. I know that lots of folks discovered during the pandemic that webinars were the devil. Webinars are my absolute jam. I love them so much because almost always I discover stuff I just didn't know before from people who have different kinds of experiences or expertise than I have. And that's incredibly valuable. So having the chance to connect with lots of folks who think about things differently than I do, who have worlds of knowledge that are brand new to me is always exciting. And to be able to do it in a context where people are happy to be in the space and want to share is always great. And doesn't happen nearly often enough.
There is a certain special magic about coming together in a physical space. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and just a couple of weeks and we'll see you on the Starbase.
Really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
My name is Mona Mijas.
Mhm.
I live in Westfield, Indiana. What else?
So you have been very involved in Starbase Indy as a volunteer for the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a couple of pieces, I think, in this anthology.
3 poems. Yeah.
Hmm. So what do you enjoy about Starbase Indy?
Well, I love Star Trek first, and I was looking for something here, at home
Hmm.
that I could get involved in and people that felt the same way because nobody in my surroundings feels the same way that I do about Star Trek.
Yeah.
And, the people are friendly and helpful and outgoing. I just love it. It's like a family. So
Yeah.
that's why I got involved. That's why I continue to stay involved.
You're very happy that you are. So tell me a little about the inspiration for the poems that you have in the anthology.
I just looked at them a few minutes ago. A lot of times I write using tarot or oracle cards
Hmm.
as inspiration. And so the first one, Chariot, well, that is the name of a tarot card. That pretty much tells you the inspiration for that card, although it was a different kind of a tarot deck. It was an odd black and white tarot deck that is not your average deck. The one fractured time. I don't know what my inspiration was about that. I just had this vision of a ghost of a writer sitting at a desk, visiting their old home. Don't ask me why. I have no clue. I don't know where that one came from. And then the other one, Guardian, again, a tarot deck, a very different tarot deck. And a friend of mine gifted me this deck. And she said, I've tried and tried for years and I just could not use it. So she gave it to me and I love it.
Well, that's wonderful. So, what are you looking forward to? You know more about what's going to happen at Starbase than most of the authors I've talked to since you've been involved in the planning. So, what
Yep.
are you looking forward to the most?
I like seeing the people. I am looking forward to trying not to spend much money in the vendor room. Wink, wink. I have a room there this year. I didn't last year. I have a roommate, so that's nice. And I really like working in anywhere I can be around people. So I'm going to be with vendors and registration as far as I know. And I like doing multiple things, meeting lots of different people and helping as much as I can, just meeting friends, old friends, new friends, saying hi to costumes. And I'm getting little, not little, I'm getting kind of a costume.
Ooh,
It's being given to me again.
that's fun. Do
I
you
don't
tell me
know
what
if
it
I'm going to
is?
wear it or not. I don't
That's
know.
that's fair.
Yeah,
It can be a game time decision.
it's a onesie.
Ooh, is it comfortable?
I don't know
Love.
yet. I don't know yet. I'll get it by.
Marvelous. That will be fun.
I haven't even seen it yet, just the picture. We'll see if I want to wear it.
There you go.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for taking time to talk with me. And in just a couple of weeks, we'll see you on the Starbase.
I am looking forward to it very much. Thank you.
I'm James McGrath. I am a professor at Butler University. I teach religious studies, and among the things that I cover in my classes and do research on are things related to the Bible, things related to pop culture, and have a particular interest in science fiction.
So I have read your story in the anthology, and I absolutely love it. I love the direction that it goes. It's not like anything else I've read.
Wow.
And I don't want to give anything away, but I will ask you what your inspiration was.
Yeah, and that will give some clues. I think, one thing I've been sharing, as I've been spreading the word about the anthology, is I've been sharing the first line, which I think is a sort of a good one, and I don't think it would cause many people not to want to read the story, and I think it would
Sure.
At least if it would have that effect, I think it would cause more people to want to see how this, where it goes from there.
Sure. So tell us the first line of the story. I don't remember it verbatim.
Yeah, I don't remember verbatim either, and so hopefully you can edit this while I quickly look up.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
One thing that people, or you can leave this in, and one thing that people will learn is that authors, I think this is generally true for the vast majority of us, do not have our stories memorized by heart. Yeah.
I would imagine not. No, that would be a lot.
Right? But yeah, better just pause.
Yeah, that's all good. I can edit things out. I guess I could pull it up, but I probably
I
will.
ran the first line by Maurice Broaddus.
Uh-huh.
After it had already been accepted, but I thought he'd appreciate it. He came and made a guest appearance in my class.
Oh, nice.
He writes fiction professionally. I dabble. This is not my first story, but it's that is not where most of my time is spent. And he said, "Yeah, that's a good, strong first line." So I was happy. That meant a lot coming from him. So the first line of the story is: if anyone asks you why the second coming hasn't happened yet, direct them to classified file.
Yeah, that will give people a taste of where the story goes. So what was it that got you thinking in those directions?
So usually, because it's usually I've written things that I had an idea and then was like, oh, let me then see if I can find a home for it. This was one of those rare instances where it's like, okay, there's a potential home for a story. What do I want to write about? Which I didn't have anything that was just like ready to go that I could just send off. And so I started thinking about it. And because of my professional and personal interests, I enjoy stories that engage in some kind of interesting, substantive and serious way with like religion or theology. There's a lot that is either just, either antagonistic or it's evangelistic or it's doing something that's heavy-handed one way or the other. And those I'm less into. But the ones where it's like you actually get to dig into, let's say, an alien belief system or something like that, which, and it reflects not just the fact that, in our imagination, anything is possible, but that if your biology is different, your theology might be different, and things like that you might not think about, right? If you're limited to thinking about it just in a terrestrial way. And so I tend to do those things. But in this case, I think the thing that was probably just there in my mind and was maybe the biggest influence was there had been times when I had circulated some artists' attempts, and that's artists not in the very professional and really great sense, but in the sense that these were images, attempts to depict the New Jerusalem that is set to come down from heaven in the book of Revelation. And the dimensions of it are a cube. And so if you are dealing with this and you're also a Star Trek fan, then you're like, okay, the New Jerusalem is coming, resistance is futile, all these kinds of possibilities for doing fun things with it come to mind. And so I said, yeah, what if somebody does sort of spots a cube approaching and then they decide there's no response, so they engage it. I just sort of started thinking about it and let my imagination run wild with this, and yeah.
Excellent. Now, you are one of my favorite speakers that comes regularly to Starbase Indy because I'm just fascinated by your mix of expertise and interests. But what is it that you love about Starbase Indy?
I go to both academic conferences, but also occasionally to fan things. Haven't been for a few years because of other things in my schedule, but always loved Gen Con. But it's just this huge, enormous thing where you may have fun. You don't feel really connected with other people unless you bring them with you, right? The odds that you'll even bump into somebody that you know are slim. And Starbase Indy is not that. It's like these academic conferences I go to where we could all be in the same room together. You may even know most of the people there, but if you don't, then you soon will, because it's just that kind of small scale thing. You can take time to talk to people, right? It's not a frantic rush. Yeah, it just has that, so that's one of the things I love about it. And then the other is the emphasis on, the educational piece, not just getting together to say, yeah, we really like sci-fi, or something like that, or any one franchise, but to say, how does this connect with, making a positive difference in the world and doing something with, that is an expression of our concern for society and our citizenship as people who love science fiction and for whom that has shaped our values, including our love of things like science. Wanting to combat misinformation about science, things like that. And so those two things, like there's just the fact that it is, it's small enough that you can just really connect with people and feel like you're really a part of it, right? You're not just lost in the sea of
Absolutely.
people. And the fact that it's not just working to make us smile and enjoy ourselves as fans, but is working to make a difference, in the real world, in the present, using the future to inspire, action in the present.
Yeah, that's my tagline for the podcast, right? People who are inspired by science and science fiction to work towards more hopeful futures in the real world.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, that's what we're all about.
Yeah, and the podcast is, I mean, the reason why that's a tagline for the podcast is because that's, that is sort of the essence of Starbase Indy, and so.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and I will see you in a couple weeks on the Starbase.
Yep, looking forward to it as always. Thanks so much for the chance to talk about my story.
Absolutely.
My name is Jeff Couch. I'm an author and I live here in Indianapolis, and I run a local writers group, and I also write short stories.
Fantastic. And you have a short story in the upcoming Starbase Indy Anthology, our very first anthology.
Yay.
Tell me, I don't want to give anything away about your story. I've read it, it's fantastic. But tell me a little about your inspiration for it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, this year I kind of issued myself a challenge, and I was writing a story a month. Every month I write a new short story, and I have found that there's been a lot going on in the world and in my personal world and in the world at large. And so I was trying to process those emotions through my writing. And so every month I kind of went, okay, what's something that I'm dealing with right now? And then I wrote about it. So this particular story kind of deals with, and you find this out very early on, that your main character finds a lot of people that don't see the world the same way he does, and it's kind of sudden, and I kind of wanted to deal with that. So that's kind of where we set off, is him going, wait, what did you just say? It's really supposed to be that kind of moment. Wait, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And it goes from there.
You really do a nice job with that. So you've been to Starbase Indy, you've been part of the writers' stuff that we've done. We're getting more of a writer's presence again, which I'm delighted by. Tell me what you like best about Starbase Indy.
Starbase Indy is fun. So I had never, growing up and all that kind of stuff, because the way I grew up, I never really had gone to a lot of conventions. And I had in my mind what a Star Trek, quote unquote, convention would be like. So first of all, it looked like San Diego Comic-Con. It was this massive thing, and everybody was in these complicated costumes, and it was all over the top. And so the first time I went to Starbase Indy, I was a little nervous. I was going to be like, I won't fit here. And it turned out it was just like a bunch of people who really liked Star Trek and other science fiction just getting together and being friends together. And so I felt way more at home than I thought I would. And I didn't feel ridiculous because I didn't have a really cool costume. I mean, there are some great costumes there. Don't get me wrong. There's some fantastic stuff. It's smaller, but not in a bad way. It's more like a family way. One of my favorite memories was I was just hanging out, and people were it was later in the evening, and there were people off doing something somewhere and people off doing something somewhere else. And I was just kind of sitting at a table chilling, and some people just sat down and we just started talking. And it was just like nothing official going on. Like, hey, so what do you like? And how are you doing? And I just met some people. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That is kind of the vibe we go for. We cannot compete with San Diego Comic Con or Gen Con or PopCon or any of the other fantastic conventions in town. So we are kind of our own thing. Yeah. So what would you say is your biggest fandom? It doesn't have to be Star Trek.
So I have a problem with fandom because I like everything.
That doesn't sound like a problem to me. Wait, is that wrong? Am I doing it
I'm
wrong?
not a super deep fan of everything. Like, I'll walk up to someone and I'll be like, "Oh, I really enjoy Star Trek," and then go, "Okay, so in episode 17 of Voyager," and I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about now." But I just like it all. I mean, I love science fiction. I have since I was a child. I've been a big fan of science fiction. I love fantasy. I love when you mix those together and you have Star Wars. I've always been a fan of that. So, like, I mean, I loved The Mandalorian when it came out because it felt like everything I'd wanted Star Wars to be, and I was a big Star Wars fan growing up. But then um, I actually ended up falling in love with Discovery, which is not popular among my Star Trek friends, but I had someone promote it to me, and I started watching it around season 3 and ended up becoming a huge fan of that. And what was really exciting for me about that is I got my family to watch it, and they had never been like super science fiction-y people, and I got my wife to watch it, my oldest to watch it, and they got into Discovery and got into Star Trek through that. And then now my wife is begging me to watch the new Strange New Worlds episodes. So I'm like, okay, dear, we'll get to it. And so she got hooked, and so that means Discovery's got a special place in my heart because it got her hooked on science fiction stuff. So I love anything that's got a good story. I love twists, but anything that's got a good story that moves you and keeps you interested, I'm there. And I'm willing to try anything new. Some things work for me, some things don't, but I'm just there for it. I love story, and I love people telling stories, and I love writers, and I just love being a part of that. So I'm there for it. You come tell me your new thing, and I'll watch it. Let's get into it. Let's find out what it's like.
Yeah, yeah, no, that. I think that's pretty common. I think a lot of folks who are not science fiction fans think it has to be one or the other, and like, no, 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 we like it all. We like the idea of seeing how the world could be different. Excellent. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me, and we will see you on the Starbase in a couple of weeks.
Can't wait to see you guys. Sure thing. Well,
Hello, my name's Elizabeth Davis. I'm one half of Dead Fish Books, and I'm not actually a person. I'm a bunch of pre-existing conditions and a human skin suit.
Do you have a trench coat too to help the disguise?
Yes, and a bathrobe, depending on the weather.
Yes, absolutely.
And I play Doctor Outfit.
So I don't want to ask specifically about your work in the anthology because I wouldn't want to spoil anything since this is coming out before the book does. But would you like to talk about your inspiration
The
for
inspiration
it?
is from Cynthia McQuinn, who was an old folk artist. I believe she's the one who passed away. She was part of the Dr. Jang duo.
Okay.
We have most of their collection on CD, and this is now burned into MP3s. Who did
Mm-hmm.
science-based folk songs
Oh, fun.
and science fiction. And this one came from Uncharted Stars, which was their mostly science fiction focused by Cynthia McQuinn. And this is story was directly inspired by Ghost Ship,
Okay.
song on the CD.
So you were just telling me that you have not been to Starbase Indy, but you have been to similar small cons. What is it about small fan-run cons that you enjoy the most?
Well, actually, these are one of the bigger fan-run cons I've been to because I also was brought to MillenniCon and not in conjunction. It was even smaller than MillenniCon. Con something. It was teeny tiny.
They all run together, don't they?
Well, that one I think stopped existing when I was a preteen. Of course, the smallest cons I've been to has been the cons that were put on by FastFac. That was what they're called at the time. I believe they're now called the Nerd Herd, the Fantasy and Science Fiction Appreciation Club of UD. Who would
Okay.
throw on a
I
con
have not heard of them.
University of Dayton. They throw on a convention that was basically only attended by University of Dayton students. And a few people from
Oh,
outside them,
nice.
which I've often nicknamed as Baby's First Con, not condescendingly. It's a good place for anyone
Right,
who.
right.
It's a good place for people to cut their teeth on on that sort of organizational effort. It's something that we probably should have more of for various topics, just kid-led and kid-driven, just to get kids used to that sort of trying to organize and behind the scenes work.
Yeah, it's a great experience working on the back end of a convention, but it is something a lot of people haven't tried and don't have.
Well,
So absolutely.
it was a BP's job. During all the time I
Mhm.
was at UD, and I think it still is, to run the actual convention. The president gets to be the head for the rest of the year, but as a VP that.
Oh, nice.
So, but yeah,
So tell me a little about, you said you have other books out. Where can people find your work?
.com, because what's the point of having a landing page if you can't just direct everyone there for?
Absolutely. That's the whole point.
Middle
Yes.
being updated along with my bibliography because I've been behind in updating the bibliography is like only a couple years out of date, as everyone.
It's a trick to keep that stuff up to date, isn't it?
Yeah, but Dead Fish Books has recently released Madame, Don't Forget Your Sword, anthology edited by me and Helen Davis, about minions, sidekicks, and hench people. We're very inclusive here.
Nice. Excellent. So what is it about speculative fiction that draws you in?
Well, I was raised in speculative fiction. I am a third generation geek. My grandfather helped carry Ray Bradbury is another famous editor. Helped carry his typewriter while he was moving, and thus ended up with a lot of amazing science magazines for his efforts.
Nice.
So my mom was raised on those, and so my mom promptly went and has a house full of science fiction and fantasy books that we were allowed to read off the shelves. So it was a language I grew up speaking. It formed my fundamental vocabulary.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I grew up on speculative fiction and then went out into like the corporate world and nobody knew what it meant to grok something. And I was a little lost until I found conventions.
Well, I was also raised in the convention saying that's, as I said, I mentioned somebody stopped existing was a preteen. My first convention I went to, I don't remember because I was still in the womb. But apparently I got to meet Hal Clement as a child.
There you go.
He he very much enjoyed our company. I don't remember that at all because apparently we were under the age of 5.
Well, it's good that you were charming so early.
Yes, I was going to say one story from my childhood about being raised in a speculative fiction family, and I apologize for my voice. I have a cold. I'm at the tail end of it, so quite as I'm not quite as terrible sounding as I was earlier this week. It is a famous story I tell of. So at the time, I decided to start reading Lovecraft in 3rd grade because I was.
Did you go to school with it?
No, I think I might have. I don't remember going to school with it because it was my mom's book. I might have been worried about damaging it, but as at the time that I was getting tired of some of the more kid-oriented mystery or horror stuff always being like, oops, it was just a doling in disguise. I watch a lot of Scooby-Doo. And while another Goosebumps, they were my sister's thing, unless it was a Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventures. I have a twin sister, so dynamics there. But so I saw this book, and it's edition that has a rather gory looking cover. I think it costs an atrocious amount nowadays because it's out of print. And I'm like, I'm going to give that a chance. I've got through spooky stories to tell in the dark, all 3 stuff, and I mostly got through it okay.
Oh dear. So Lovecraft was maybe not what you expected.
I got to Pickman's model and then put the book up and regained my fear of the dark, which was truly impressive as an adult me going, that means I went through the Call of Cthulhu. How the heck did I even process that story because Pickman's model is after Call of Cthulhu Anthology. I'm like, I have no memory of it. I remember the stuff about the rats and the monster in the mirror, but I'm surely tempted to read Call of Cthulhu, and I might have succeeded, but
Great.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Okay. Hi, I'm Cliff Flint. I've been reading sci-fi almost since I could read. I remember when the original Star Trek came on the air, that was the only program that was, I'm going to stop everything. We're going home. I'm watching the TV now. Shut up. Because it was, the previous sci-fi had been Lost in Space, which even as a kid was pretty kiddish. So
yeah, not the same.
I've been a computer programmer most of my life and started writing stories when I was in college. I have plenty of rejection letters to prove that I did it badly.
That's the key to success, isn't it? On the number of rejection letters, yeah.
Some people
and you are doing it well now. I can attest, having a sneak preview of the anthology in my Kindle.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I say some people learn by seeing, some people learn by hearing. I learned by making mistakes.
I think everyone learns by making mistakes, but that's master's degrees in, so I don't know anything about it. So tell me about your inspiration for this story.
That one actually came out of a plot generator that I wrote.
Nice. And so wait, back up. Tell us about the plot generator first.
Okay. What it does is, instead of giving you the thing I don't like about plot generators is that there are things like a spaceship lands on the White House lawn and it ties you into a story. So what mine does is it gives you a character type, a story style, and a situation type, but it's not tied to anything. So a plucky young girl is confronted with a need to find herself.
Okay.
And so that.
So and what I particularly like is that you wrote this rather than relying on, ChatGPT or something.
Yeah. No, I've been on a lot of AI panels lately, and
I bet you have.
One of the, this is not quite my current project. This is the 3rd edition. The 4th edition is coming out next year. And the publisher wanted a chapter on AI, so I've had to learn a lot about what you can and shouldn't do with AI. I'm down with this. An AI can write a so-so story. I'm the only one who can write my story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That generative piece of putting that spark of humanity in it isn't really AI's strong suit, is it? So cool. You got to use your plot generator to create the story. Now, you have been to Starbase Indy several times at this point. Tell me what you enjoy about Starbase Indy.
Community. I love the original series. Okay, I'm probably going to turn off some of your listeners because I love the original Star Trek series. I got about 4 episodes into the Pepsi generation and turned it off.
The Pepsi generation. I haven't heard it called that before.
Okay. Well, it's because the original series was the real thing.
Got it. Have you watched any of the new stuff?
No, they're all on streaming services that I don't get.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So I'm not heavily into the Star Trek culture.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I was welcome. I was happy. I could sit down in the hallway and talk with people and and had some great conversations with folks. And so that was a lot of fun. And Starbase Indy, I know it sounds like a Star Trek con, but I've actually been to Strek cons and it's not.
Yeah.
I was doing a sales call. I was doing technical sales for doing biological imaging company. And I also wrote the software and drove the truck.
Sure.
We were small.
Yeah.
But I ended up in St. Louis the weekend of one of the Star Trek cons. And it took me 2 days to get registered because every time I looked for the registration desk, it was, no, Scotty is talking. So we're all over there. There's nobody manning registration.
Okay, that tracks. The Star Trek is less dedication to the series for Starbase Indy and more inspired by the idea of a hopeful future, which is one of the things that ties Star Treks together, right? In a way that other universes maybe don't experience as much.
Yeah, and that was really Gene Roddenberry's big vision, was the idea that a united Earth, and it really was a utopia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Despite the occasional war and a piece of the action and tribbles and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. Okay. And I will see you in a couple weeks on the Starbase.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much for inviting me. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Starbase Indy podcast. To find more information about our live event this November, check us out at starbaseindy.org or on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. See you on the Starbase.